Hello, hello, Christy here with the Automation on a Mission, and we have our latest installment of your business booster. And this week we are going to talk about building your marketing plan for 2025. And specifically, I want to talk a little bit about the do's and the don'ts and a couple of things that you might want to keep in mind. Now, the goal here is to not make things super scary and overwhelming, but really to give you some ideas and resources to make building your marketing strategy feasible, attainable, realistic, and something that you can be excited about and refer back to. So the last thing that I want for you is to have you, going out there and building a bunch of stuff, creating a bunch of rules for yourself essentially, and then not being able to sustain it. So let's dive in. I got myself a little slideshow, as I like to do. And also with this training, I've created a little bit of a resource for you as an intended guide to help essentially, take the stuff that we're talking about and turn it into practice. So make sure that you download the worksheet, follow along, or watch this training and then utilize the worksheet to help take your ideas and turn those things into action. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. All right, so do's and don'ts for your next marketing plan, setting you and your business up for success for 2025. And I feel like, because we're talking about wrapping up the end of the year, and you can't tell, but there's like 1.5 feet of snow behind me. So piles of leaves and bald trees is totally appropriate for this time of year, right? So let's get started. So number one, let's talk a little bit about why your marketing plan matters. So different, and also let me just differentiate. What we're talking about here is not your strategic plan. It's not creating and identifying the goals that your business. It's specifically how you take the goals and the things that you're working on in terms of these big, hairy, audacious goals and specific action steps for how you're going to achieve them in your business. And then how are you going to use marketing to achieve those goals? So it is not your strategic plan for your year or your multiple year plan. It's specifically about utilizing the marketing techniques and strategies to achieve those goals. So why does a marketing plan matter? Because it helps you build that foundation for success. It helps you understand the things that are working, the things that aren't, and recognizing that if you've never done this before, you may be starting with making some guesses. I'm going to focus on these social media channels. I'm going to do this kind of email marketing. I'm going to do this in terms of how I spend my money in my marketing efforts, those kinds of things. So the hope is that you build a precedent for yourself and your business, and that you use that as the foundation for your future growth. So even if right now you're in the process of building the foundation, that's awesome. That's great. You have to start somewhere. Next, keeping your efforts focused and intentional. And I feel like at this point in time, we've all heard people talk about the spaghetti method, where you throw a whole bunch of noodles on the wall and you see what sticks, or you do one of these things. And the reality is, if you're doing this all the time, you have no idea what's working and you have no idea how to then replicate that process. So when we have a marketing plan and we say, this is how I'm going to focus my efforts, it allows us to eliminate some of those other distractions and specifically focus on intentional practices. And the other thing is, the more you are consistent in your efforts, and we're going to talk more about this, the more your audience also is trained to operate and interact with you those ways. And consistency helps with reducing overwhelm. It helps with encouraging you to show up every day in your marketing and not just focus on delivery, or, oh my gosh, where's my next sale coming from? And so the other thing that I wanted to share, just, a personal experience, a personal story for me is, I have done a ton in the last handful of years to try to get really clear about what's effective and what's not in my business. And also know that just because it's working today doesn't mean that it doesn't dry up and you don't have to be able to innovate and adapt. But what I have done is experiment with things so that by the time I hit 2024, I knew specifically what was working in my business and how to capitalize on those efforts. And now I'm starting to focus on other things. What are other ways to generate leads? So for example, in our business, the thing that has been the best marketing tool is organic networking. And we've spent the last 12 months trying to figure out what are the best effective strategies in terms of other lead generation. How do we market ourselves in terms of, what we put on our business page in Facebook versus Instagram versus LinkedIn? What do we do in terms of our email content? How do we make sure that we have a presence in these kinds of social channels or this kind of networking, that sort of thing? Because now that we've got this, moving and grooving, let's refine, let's adjust, let's optimize, and let's start to look at other things that help us scale more efficiently. So that's just sort of an example, but I've gotten to that place because I've put in the time in the previous years as well. So what goes into your marketing plan? So when it comes to the creating of your marketing plan, just like everything else, we're going to start by talking about who your ideal client is. So when you know who your ideal client is, that helps you then be able to do a better job with understanding how to create marketing that's going to meet their needs. It's not just about the things that you want, love, and enjoy doing, but also making sure that you're spending your time and your money and resources on reaching those people where they hang out. And we can't do that if we don't know who it is that we're talking to. So defining who your ideal client means identifying and understanding what their goals are, what their pain points are, what's driving them to achieve those goals, making sure that the messaging is talking to that specific person. And if I say this in every video, then I say it in every video. If you're trying to talk to everyone, you end up talking to, fill in the blanks, no one. So if you try to talk to everyone, you end up talking to no one because you're not specific in your messaging. So take the time, make sure that you've got a clear idea about who your ideal client is. Make sure that you're going back and revisiting that every single year to make sure that, hey, this is who my ideal client is. Who have I served in the last year? Is it a match? If not, then perhaps marketing planning is the answer to helping you get a closer alignment. Is your ideal client what needs to change? Or is it the places that you hang out, the messaging that you have, that sort of thing? So identifying your marketing goals means making sure that they are in alignment with the goals that you have for your year. So you don't make your marketing plan in a vacuum. You make it so that it's working in complement to your business goals. If your business goals are to, let's say it's to make $500,000 this year, and then your marketing plan needs to be the action steps, the content on that's going to be developed. So I can't say I'm going to make $500,000 in my business and not talk about my business to anybody. So this is how we go about doing that. And then, like any other goal setting process, your marketing goals and your marketing plans should be SMART goals. So they should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Next, let's talk about where we do those things. So I talked about matching our channels with our audience preferences, otherwise known as where do they hang out, and that's where I need to be. Let me clarify something about that too. So I've brought in several people, and we're interviewing again for somebody to help us with our lead gen. And I've experimented with cold email this year, cold calling, and then organic outreach in LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Facebook. And, but every single time I start working with a new person, I hear the same thing. We need to get on Instagram. And hey, listen, I love scrolling on Instagram. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, because I pay attention to my numbers, the only person that's reading or seeing and being exposed to the social media content that we push out on Instagram is me. So at a point, I stopped listening to these other people and started going to the places where I know we're getting traction. I'm not going to continue to focus my time and energy on Instagram because one way or another, do my ideal clients hang out on Instagram? Yes. Are they seeing my content? No. Are they engaging? Are they commenting? No. So kick it to the curb, move on, go somewhere else, focus on the things that work. So I know that LinkedIn works. I know that when I send somebody a message in LinkedIn, there's a good chance that they're going to respond. That sort of thing. All right. So when we talk about identifying your key marketing channels, know your ideal client so that you can go and investigate and explore and maybe even experiment with where are you going to get the best bang for your buck. And so when we talk about hanging out, doesn't necessarily mean hanging out is an effective place for you to essentially market and promote your business. It means, where are you going to have traction with that? Do my ideal clients hang out on Instagram? Yes. Do they want to see marketing content from me on Instagram? No. I know that there are plenty of people out there that are using TikTok as a channel, or another thing, but you have to consider, like, what's the mindset of the person when they get into that place. Other things to consider when it comes to your marketing channels is, where is your budget of time and money best spent? So that can be both in paying people, it can be in paid advertising, and also your time. It takes time to train somebody, it takes time to experiment, it takes time to create all that content, whether that's email, whether that's social media, whether that's video, et cetera, et cetera. So know what marketing channels are going to work with your ideal client, and then build your marketing plan so that you're focusing your time, energy, and resources on utilizing those specific channels. So let's talk a little bit about those do's and don'ts for an effective marketing plan. So number one, I want to start with consistency. And the thing about this is, I think it's the thing that's probably the most underrated, or maybe it's under practiced. And this is where we get into the meat of this training. So when I talk about consistency, and we talk a little bit about this when we do onboarding with clients, and we're talking about that welcome series, and we're talking about our indoctrination and our long-term nurture. And the first email that we have templated and ready to rock and roll for our clients is an email that's like, this is after you've given your lead magnet, after they've entered your ecosystem form, whatever that might have been. But it's basically an introduction. It's like, I'm so sorry, I got so excited on doing this thing over here, I forgot to introduce myself. I forgot to give you a little bit of information about who I am, what I do, and what you can expect from me. That email is super important, because what it does is it sets the tone. It says to your follower, your prospect, your client, your future customer, it tells them exactly what they can expect to get from you. When you create and launch a podcast and say, I'm going to create a podcast and launch it every single week and have guest speakers, you've just made yourself committed and anchored to not only producing the content, but finding the people, interviewing them, ensuring that they're the right fit, doing the podcast, editing the podcast, uploading, like, it's a lot of stuff, right? So when we say create with consistency in mind, I want you to be thinking about, what marketing efforts can you do that you can maintain? And so if you are listening and watching this training as a one-person show, you need to consider your marketing plan with one person in mind. What does one person look like when their schedule is wide open? What does that one person schedule look like when they are booked with sales calls and client calls and networking and all the other things that are happening? Are you creating a structure in your business and in your life that sets you up for success? Because it is super important that what you say you do is what you deliver. So if you say, I'm going to create a podcast and release it every week, then you need to have the systems and the mechanisms in place to support that. If you're saying, I'm going to send out a blog every week, create the systems and processes that set you up for success. Because when you break that down, when you stop doing it, you are essentially breaking trust with your community. We don't want that, right? Next thing is, I want you to leverage automation. Now, okay, so it has been a whopping 12 minutes, and it's the first time I've said automation in this training. Woo woo! I didn't even say the business. Oh yeah, I probably did say automation. So but that one doesn't count, right? So leverage automation. And what I mean by that is making sure that as you are thinking about that consistency, it's totally fine to commit to a podcast a week. Batch that stuff. Get it all organized, get it all edited, get it all scheduled and automated for delivery, so that you set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about the manual process. Now, there are parts of our marketing that are always going to have to be manual. When we have to show up in person, we have to show up in person. And it is what it is, and that's okay. But where are you doing manual things that could be automated, that saves you time? Also helps then with that consistency and the ease of making sure your content is getting out on a regular basis. And then the next thing in terms of our marketing plan, and you hear this a lot from me as well, is making sure that your follow-up system is considered as a part of your marketing plan. And this is super important. And the reason for that being, the secret sauce to getting clients is having the best follow-up. It's having better follow-up than your competition because they don't have a chance to forget about you. They know when it's time to take an action, you're the first person that they think of, and you've made it super easy for them to go and find you, reach out with you, reconnect with you if it's been a hot minute. Hey guys, thanks so much for playing, and it's a little loud. You guys might not be able to hear that, but they're playing and it's a little distracting to me, so my apologies. So as I'm trying to say, having a good follow-up system as a part of your marketing plan. I mean, hey, what if for 2025, if you're thinking right now, I don't know what the heck she's talking about, or I don't have a follow-up system, maybe that is your marketing plan goal for 2025, is that by the end of the year, you have a comprehensive follow-up system for every stage of your customer journey. So here's what that could look like. Maybe Q1, you focus on maybe it's just it's an audit of where you're at, because by the way, as you continue to build and get better at this, you have all this stuff. And do we know it's all working? Do we know that it's doing what we need it to do? So maybe Q1 is all about auditing what's already there. Q2 is making sure that we have amazing follow-up in our attract stage. So remember, if we put the customer journey in 3 buckets: attract, sell, and wow, otherwise known as deliver. The Q2, Q3, and Q4 could be focused on Q1, attract; Q2, sell; Q3, wow. So what does an appropriate follow-up system look like in the attract stage? Making sure that you have an effective welcome and indoctrination series, making sure that you have an effective long-term nurture. And that long-term nurture, I mean, gosh, if you're committing to a good follow-up system just in this one single quarter that gives you 3 months to create, I don't know, what if it was like 20 or 30 different emails that you schedule out so that, that it drips out to people in your long-term nurture that go out, once every several days. And this is all just in addition to any other content that you have. So when I think about follow-up systems, it could be your blog, it could be your newsletter, it can be other storytelling efforts that go out in email, in phone calls, in text messages, in direct mail pieces, all the things. So your follow-up now, and I like to talk a lot about the email because it is something that you can very easily leverage with automation. But if your first quarter is focused on just the long-term nurture, just making sure that we've got our ducks in a row so that we have a long-term strategy, I'd say, how amazing would it be that you have a long-term nurture and that in conjunction with your welcome series spans a 6-month period, because that's really our do or die for engagement. It doesn't mean that they have to get kicked off at the end of 6 months, but at the end of 6 months, you want to really truly evaluate whether or not they're engaged with your content and maybe they need to move on. On the selling side of the follow-up system, it's making sure that when you're making an offer, you have an effective strategy that is going to span time that's specifically meeting the buyer's timeline, not yours. So we talked about 6 months for a long-term nurture. And the reason being that, again, people buy when they're ready to buy, not when you're ready to sell. And so we know it takes an average of 20 touches, but sometimes it can take a lot longer. And so we want to make sure that we are setting ourselves and our prospect up for success by making sure that we've created content that gives them just the right kind of love at the right time. And that same strategy can be used for after you make an offer for those people that are not ready to say yes. So what do you do with the person who doesn't say yes, but is also not a no? So maybe they're just sort of kicking the tires, maybe they need more time, whatever. Put them into a different kind of long-term nurture that's specifically for after the sale. You can take the same emails that you created for your attract long-term nurture and tweak and adjust them so that it's not the same messaging, but similar. And you're oh gosh, you can tell the same stories, like just make it obviously different for that experience. But the point being that you want to have a really good follow-up so that just because they're not answering in your timeline, I mean, it's the professional and the right thing to do, but sometimes people are afraid of disappointing. Sometimes they're afraid of making a decision. Sometimes they haven't made a decision. So they're sort of paralyzed in their own stuff, and that's their stuff to worry about. You don't have to deal with it. But what you can do is make sure that you're like, hey, I'm here when you're ready, without saying I'm just following up 30 different times, right? So Q2, focusing on the follow-up system for the selling. And then the wow, oh my God, I gotta tell you, is my favorite. It really is my favorite kind of follow-up. And it truly became my favorite when I got to build this for different kinds of clients, because there are so many different ways that you can show value in the work that you do and automate the process. So think about whatever your core programs are, and how do you tell stories? How do you build value so that they can continue to feel the love and not like, oh my gosh, she just took all my money and now I got nothing. So for example, when somebody signs up for Automation on a Mission, I am going to help reduce overwhelm because I'm delivering on my promise, not only of giving you this really awesome system, but our promise is to help make entrepreneurship easier. And the best way I can do that is know and understand that when you sign up for Automation on a Mission on that first day, you're probably feeling a little overwhelmed and like, holy cow, what the heck did I just do? And so now you're trying to figure out, where do I go first? What do I do next? How do I do that? And so every day, for the first 14 days of your experience in Automation on a Mission, you get an email a day. And we break the app up into different sections to try to give you a way of learning the system and seeing the value in what you just invested in. That's a way for us to continue to deliver value. Our done for you setup, it includes tons of communication. Now that's all manual. And so it's hard for us to, fully automate some of those things. However, it's another way of continuing to show how special and appreciative we are to our newest clients, our newest members. So when we talk about a follow-up system and you think about how it fits into your big picture marketing plan, what I'm trying to tell you is to break it up into chunks. So Q1, audit. Q2, or maybe you just dive right into that attract stage. Q2, we're going to focus on amazing follow-up for our sales process. Q3, we're going to focus on an amazing follow-up for what happens after somebody buys, that sort of thing. Now let's talk about what you should be avoiding, or the things that are in that don't category when it comes to building your marketing plan. So the goal is not just to make a marketing plan, it's to make a marketing plan with the intention of doing the marketing plan. So the goal here is to create and invest or commit to yourself to do things that you know you will do. So if you've signed yourself up, and when I say sign myself up, I mean, when you've written down in a marketing plan a whole bunch of stuff that you already are like cringing about, don't do that. And here's what I'll say is, I'm gonna do the opposite of what your coach is probably telling you. So if you have a coach and your coach is telling you, you need to go do this thing, if you have avoidance around it, you're not going to do it. So for example, I'll use myself. I can't stand Facebook Lives. I can't stand Reels. I can't stand, believe it or not, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with talking to you and creating a video all by myself. That's not a problem. I don't enjoy creating social media content of me just talking at random about stuff, because all I do is ramble. And so I don't enjoy it, and therefore I won't do it. So making a commitment to myself to do Reels and do Facebook Lives and do all that stuff is something that I am pretty much going to like tell myself 100% I'm going to fail, because I'm not going to follow through. Because why? I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. It's not about insecurity. It's not about what will people think or imposter syndrome or any of those things. It's straight up, I don't like it. And so if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. And isn't that the joy and the whole reason we signed up for this crazy entrepreneurship thing in the first place, to be able to do what we want to do? So if your coach is pushing you towards doing something you truly don't enjoy, push back. And I'm not saying push back and say, hey, I'm paying for you to produce results. I'm saying that if it's something that you don't like, then you and your coach need to brainstorm other ways, because it's not like that one thing that you don't like doing is the only way to do it. So find other things that you will be successful at. Now, here's my caveat to that one point. If you are having an issue with doing something in your business because of imposter syndrome, because of your own feelings of inadequacy, because of some kind of fear, use that coaching to work through that block and see if that gets you on the other side to where you can enjoy it and do more with ease. When I first started doing webinars, I found them to be absolutely terrifying, but I love teaching. And so I worked through my fear of showing up on camera and talking and teaching for the first time, to the extent where when I showed up for the most recent training that I did with a group of strangers, it was not a problem. It wasn't a big deal. So the difference being, I like doing the trainings. I like doing the teachings. I don't like talking about nothing for the sake of trying to get a sale. Doesn't feel good to me. So know what that thing is for you, and also know why you don't want to do that thing, because you may find that it's not about enjoyment. It may be some other kind of block that's preventing you from taking action there. And it only matters if you, if that one thing that you don't enjoy doing is a place where your people hang out. So, one other piece to keep in mind. And then the last piece that I will say about this, and then I will get off my soapbox because I've been talking about it for quite a bit, is we talked about in the do's about creating consistency. So the other side of this committing to things that you don't enjoy doing is, again, you break down the trust. So if you try and take on something that you absolutely can't stand doing, not only are you setting yourself up for failure, but you're setting your community up as well. You're setting up your followers for failure because they are expecting you to show up in that format. Okay. Next, don't neglect your existing clients and your existing community. So often, and this is very, very common in survival entrepreneurship, is we focus so much on getting the sale that once that sale is closed, we breathe the sigh of relief, and then we go back to the beginning and start focusing on the next sale without thinking about how do we take care of our existing clients. Your marketing doesn't stop when they become a customer. So we talked a little bit in our do's around making sure that we've got good follow-up for every stage of the customer journey. The same thing is true, and essentially, if you are doing the follow-up on the after the sale, you're not neglecting your existing clients. You're making sure that they're well taken care of. But if you're not doing that, consider that as a gap, because the thing is when it comes time for them to buy again, are you the person they're going to go to? When it comes time for that program to end, or that coaching experience to end, or that event to come to a close, are you the person they think about the next time they need those kinds of services? Are you the person they think about? And it's not just about them buying from you, although that's a really strong and possible, opportunity. But what's also possible is they refer business to you. And they're not going to do that if they don't think that you value them and they don't see the value in the work that you're doing. And they're not going to do it if they don't know how, and you're not the first person that they think of. And so if you have forgotten them and abandoned them, it's very quick and easy for them to do the same thing to you. And then the last thing is, don't overcomplicate things. If you've never made a marketing plan, keep it simple. Don't create this big elaborate thing that you are going to be a slave to from now until the end of time. Focus on those SMART goals, but focus on things that are achievable. Focus on a process by which you do not dread going back to your marketing plan to look at it, to report on it, to use as a form of checks and balances in your business. So what I want you to be thinking about is how to build a marketing plan that drives you to utilize the system, utilize the tool. So if I use us as an example one last time, and having a growing team has made all the difference for us. I started using Asana for the umpteen bazillionth time, but one of our project boards is content. It's our marketing plan, essentially. And so we have a calendar, and that calendar can be a board. It could be all those other kinds of views of task lists and things like that. But what we've started to do is take our big marketing goals and aspirations. So maybe our marketing goals are things like deliver a blog every week, deliver a newsletter every 2 weeks, get social media content out that looks like this. The plan is written out so that we've got these high level goals, and then our content calendar in Asana is where we execute. So when we talk about overcomplicating, I spent, I don't know, 2 hours thinking about blog ideas, and I put them into the content plan. I have newsletters scheduled with a theme for now through the end of this year. And it's been that way since I want to say like July or August. So the nice thing is that I sat down and I batched that stuff so that it was meeting our marketing goals, and so that when we are crunched for time, lacking in inspiration, feeling overwhelmed, I don't feel like a slave to the blog. I don't feel like a slave to the newsletter, as just some simple examples. I have that as a resource to help me when I sit down to write or to do the work. I can hit the ground running because I've taken, the time to, okay, I'm in my creative zone and this is, I'm gonna put all this stuff out there and then I can move things around as well. And how awesome it is, because then when it comes to something like my newsletter, one of the things that's really important that we include in our newsletter is a free resource. And as much fun as I have in creating free resources for our community, what's even better is to use that as a venue for showcasing partnerships with other people. So how do I introduce you to this operations person over here, or this SEO expert over here, or this get shit done client, or business coach over here, because they have really amazing resources and they have tons of value to share with the world that I think that you would love to have and see. And when I start to sit down and plan that big picture, then I can go out and look for those strategic partnerships, and it's a win-win. It's a win-win-win. I get a win because I already know exactly what I'm looking for. My community of followers, my readers, my subscribers get a win because I'm giving them value and exposure to somebody new. That's really cool and awesome. And it's a win for that person who I'm showcasing and highlighting and featuring as a part of our newsletter. So that's what I think about when I think about overcomplicating or not overcomplicating, is creating systems and processes that set me up for success. So what does that look like for you? I started big picture. I'm going to have these kinds of touch points. I'm going to strive for things that I can sustain and be successful at. Was it this one? So building a what's this one, right? I don't remember. Anyways, my point is, I started with that big picture goal in mind, and then it was this one. And then I take that big picture goal and I just turn that into tangible, measurable outcomes. And I'm then able to more consistently meet my own personal aspirations, goals, which then also translates into delivering on the promise that I'm making to my subscribers, my prospects, and my clients. So as I think about, as we wrap up our planning, I want you to really focus on utilizing this time between now and the first of the year to be thinking about, what are you doing today that's working in your business? What are you doing, or where do you see gaps in your existing marketing strategy? And notice that 95% of everything I've shared today has nothing to do with spending money on ads. It has everything to do with you finding out who you're talking to, where do they hang out, and creating content that helps you build know, like, and trust and move them through your customer journey. All right? As always, please reach out if you have questions. And like I said at the very beginning, I've created a worksheet that goes with this. It does not have any pumpkins on it, or squirrels or hedgehogs, and maybe it should have those. Anyways, use that, again, big picture, and then you get to take that and put that into whatever format you want. All right? Thanks so much and have a good one.